So far we have studied three different structures which are used in programming. The first one we have studied was sequence structure. The second one we have studied was selection structure. So today we are going to study the third one, which is loop structure. It will tell us why we need loop structure in a programming language and what benefits does it provide. Let's first understand why we need loop structure. So consider our previous examples where we had roller coaster ride and we were building a ticketing system where we had to take input the user's age and weight and some other criteria, and we were trying to find out what kind of roller coaster the user is able to ride. So let's suppose 1,000 users come to our theme park every day, and we have to print tickets for them, and each ticket will have information about their what kind of rides they are allowed and not allowed. So in order to process 1,000 users, one way to do it is you take the age input, right? And some other information like you have seen in the previous examples. And then you have to print a ticket based on the age. Right? And then we tell it what age the user is and some other criteria. Now suppose we have to do the same thing for 1,000 users. So if we don't have loops, our only option is that we will go to the next line and input age of another user, the second user, and then we print ticket. Right? If you have a third user, we will do the same thing. Input age and so forth, right? For 1,000 users, we will have to do the same steps 1,000 times. Now, can you imagine repeating, copying and pasting all these lines 1,000 times? And so that the program starts at the beginning and then it goes one by one and processes 1,000 users. And what if you have 10,000 users visiting the theme park? What if you have a situation where you have to process a file with like 1 million records inside? This is obviously not practical, and it becomes impossible. If you look into this, this is actually the task which we have to perform, and this task is repeated. The same task is repeated multiple times, right? So this is the second time, third time, and 1,000th time. So in order to resolve this issue of duplication, and there is it's a difficult to follow program. For example, somebody has to go through all these 1,000 lines. If there is an error in a program, it needs to be fixed 1,000 times, right? Let's suppose if you want to enter a message instead of just age, you want to enter a message, what is your age, right? Now, you have to do this 1,000 times because now every time you have to replace this age question mark with this input. So this is very difficult, right? It's obviously not practical. So how can we fix it? In order to fix it, we take help of the loop structures. So what loop structure provides us is that it takes a task that we need to repeat. So loop structures are meant for repetitive tasks. If you have a task which needs to be repeated multiple times, then we can take the help of loop structure to simplify the program. Now think about your daily life, right? What do you do every day? Let's suppose you wake up, you do breakfast, you do lunch, and then you eat dinner, right? Now lunch, breakfast, and dinner is repeated every day. Now in your daily life, basically that's part of the loop you have to go through every day, right? You take the brunch, you take the breakfast, you do the lunch, and then the dinner, and then the same process is repeated the next day, and the same process is repeated the following day, and so forth, right? So any repetitive task we can do with the help of loops. Now, in order to represent loops in a flowchart is something like this. So the first thing is you have to make a decision, right? Whether you want to execute that loop or not. So there's some kind of condition that you need to check. If the condition is true, you take one path, and if the condition is false, you take a different path. Now, when the condition is true, you have to perform certain tasks, right? You have a task that you need to perform repetitively. So when the condition is true, this task is performed. But when the condition is false, it just goes out of the loop and the task is not executed. But once the task is performed, it needs to go back and run the loop again. And by running the loop, I mean that it needs to check the condition. So if the condition is false, it goes out of the loop. If the condition is true, task gets executed and the loop is repeated. So that's how you represent loops in a flowchart form. So in order to represent a loop in a pseudocode form, we can say that while some condition evaluates to true, we repeat certain tasks. Whatever task you want to repeat, it could be a single task or it could be a multiple tasks inside the while loop, and then we end the while loop. Okay? And so any task or any statement that is outside the while loop will not be executed multiple times. Only the tasks or statements that are inside the while loop will get executed multiple times. Another thing to keep in mind that these tasks and statements are also sometimes called the body of the loop, right? It could be multiple tasks, multiple statements. Collectively, they are referred to as the body of the loop. So in your daily life example of eating meals, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what will be the condition? So in that case, the condition will be, are you awake, right? If you're awake, only then you can eat the breakfast and the lunch and the dinner. So we can say is awake in that situation, then perform the task of eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then repeat the next day.